How we do this, we are the truest. Got these fangs super sharp, your shit toothless. Cold-hearted, yeah we ruthless. All the ghouls in the cut, let's get ghoulish. In the graveyard, acting foolish. Finna dance with the devil to no music. Cold-hearted, yeah we ruthless. All the ghouls in the cut, let's get ghoulish.
Hello, ghouls! This is a new episode of a podcast called Ghoulish, and it's me, Max Booth, an undead host, talking to you into a microphone. Today, I am talking to the owner of Butchel Cabin Books, Jenny Kiefer, about the Butchel Cabin Books. We're talking about running a spooky bookshop, because if you haven't read my newsletter recently or checked out my social media, we just recently signed the lease on a building in San Antonio. Well, the greater San Antonio area, Selma, Texas to be specific. We signed a lease on a building to open a spooky bookshop of our own. It's going to be called Ghoulish Books, just like the small press we run. Just make it simple. No need to come up with a separate name. We will have a Ghoulish Books spooky bookshop that we will be opening sometime this year. We move into the building the beginning of March, and I am terrified, which is why I had Jenny on the podcast to walk me through what it's like running a bookshop. Maybe this won't be the only episode I do with those who run spooky bookshops. Maybe I'll have a few other people come on, like Chris from Little Ghost Books, I think that's the name, or the kind folks who run Bucket of Blood. I think it can be fun talking to them, and instead of me doing my own research, just interrogating everybody to tell me how they do this, because it's happening. I gotta buy bookshelves now. It's gonna be fun. So if you live in Central Texas, you want to come visit a spooky bookshop, stay tuned. We will be opening one in the incoming months. Also, if you live in Texas and you like spooky books, April 14th, 15th, and 16th, we will be hosting the Ghoulish Book Fest in downtown San Antonio. Come check it out. Buy badges now. Badges are available at ghoulishbookfest.com. Get them while you can. I mean, I don't know what's going to happen to them, but, just get them. Lots of fun special guests like Josh Malerman, Trevor Henderson, V. Castro, Johnny Compton. It's going to be a fun time. I hope you come visit the fest. I hope you come visit the shop when it's open. In the meantime, listen to my conversation with Jenny about Butchel Cabin Books. And if you live in Louisville, Kentucky, go visit the shop. It sounds fun. I would love to go visit someday. And go to jennykiefer.com to see what Jenny's up to writing-wise. She has a novel coming out next year called THIS WRETCHED Valley. Sounds incredible, and I can't wait for it to come out. Hey, maybe I'll even have that novel stocked at my bookshop when it comes out. I mean, why wouldn't I, right? Maybe Jenny could even come down to San Antonio and do an event at the shop. That would be fun. I don't know. One day at a time. That's the motto of the podcast. Anyone listening, they know that's the motto. One day at a time. That's what we say on this show. All right. Wait! Don't go away yet. We also have a Kickstarter going on right now. This is the last podcast that will go live while the Kickstarter is still active. It ends February 2nd. Please go to Kickstarter.com, type in Ghoulish, click on the one that says Ghoulish Books, and pledge. Please, god damn, back us. Okay, that's it. Here's the episode. You run a bookshop in a city I'm going to mispronounce intentionally, Louisville.
Yep.
Excellent. Now, do people get mad when they say Louisville? Is that like a... Does anyone say that? Maybe I'm the only one who's ever said that.
There's actually like a famous to locals here t-shirt where it's just like different pronunciations of the city name. So people like, I think it's really, for me at least, it's just a litmus test of if you're local or not, because
Yeah.
locals will say Louisville, like this really weird, um, not well pronounced or enunciated version of the name.
Yeah.
I think that it's, French, and I think it's supposed to be Louisville, which is, I think, what most people say if they're not from the town.
Now, are you from the town?
Yes, I grew up here. Um, I have lived here most of my life. I went to college outside of Louisville, and I lived in like Nashville for a little while. But yeah, I'm from here, and I've been here most of my life.
And when did the bookshop open? Butchell Cabin Books, for those listening. Although if I'm doing my job, I also said that in the intro.
Yeah, so we actually opened Butcher Cabin Books on October 15th of last year, so in 2022. But we had been working on it for probably about a little over a year before we actually got it open.
And what did that entail? Like the pre-planning of it opening? What were you doing in that year ahead of time? What type of planning went into it?
We were collecting used books. So we were just sort of like trying to source those from either like book sales or thrift stores. And, we would clean them up, get all the stickers and crap off of them, make sure all the pages were there and stuff. So we were collecting books, but mostly we were cleaning out and renovating the space. And it's kind of a very unique situation that benefits us, but my business partner is my mom, Martha, and my parents own the building where the bookstore is. So we had the benefit of, our landlord is one of the business owners, so we didn't have quite as much startup costs as I think some people who might go into starting a business would have. And what was in the space before the bookstore was a alarm company called Curry Sound, which is actually still in the building but in the back. And my dad owns that business and sort of took over from my grandfather, who took over from the guy who started it. And that's how my parents ended up owning the building. And so we got lucky in that sense. We were also lucky in that the building that they owned is on a really awesome street with a lot of great shops and neighbors that are complimentary to us. So if anybody comes to visit, they'll probably want to spend some time on the street, just walking up and down. We've got a really cool breakfast shop next door to us called Big Bad Breakfast. And if you come sort of later in the evening, there's a vegan restaurant that does sort of like vegan fast food or vegan like dive bar type foods like burgers and stuff like that at the corner. And there's another bar at the corner and at the other corner. So down both ends of the street, there's a bar that are really nice. And there's like a record store and a really niche like oddities shop called Unorthodox on the street. There's some vintage stores. So we got really lucky in a lot of ways. But yeah, we were just renovating the space and trying to get it set up to be a bookstore and not an office.
Yeah. Now you said that there's also the alarm system company in the back of the building. Have you two ever discussed collaborating on like a type of book that when you open it, it begins going off?
No, that would be really awesome though. Some sort of interactive book. And my dad could probably rig something up because he I mean, you from the name Curry Sound, it used to be like they used to do a lot more sound equipment and have to do all that kind of like wiring and crazy stuff like that, but they sort of moved to just being security systems. But yeah, he could totally rig something up like that.
That would be pretty awesome. I don't know what you would do with that, to be honest. Like, what purpose would that serve exactly?
Scaring customers.
Hell yeah, just get out. Leave us alone. Don't buy anything. Leave. Um, so what I guess I would love to know, I mean, what led to you wanting to open a bookshop, especially one like with your mom? Is this something the two of you have discussed for a long time? Where did this come from?
Well, I am a horror writer myself, and I have some short stories forthcoming, and my debut novel is going to be published with Quirk next year, I think a year from now, January 2024. So I'm a horror writer myself, and I have done, obviously by proxy, a lot of horror reading. And I just kind of got frustrated that, when I would go to a bookstore, and Louisville really only has one, besides Butcher Cabin Books, really only has one independent bookstore. It's called Carmichael's, and they're really great. Their stores are small and they don't have like a horror section. But was able to find some like more indie books there, but then big box stores, but it's still a lot of the same where, like you go in and there's either a small section, not very much to choose from, or it's kind of split all across the store. They don't have specifically a horror section. So you kind of have to like look through just the standard fiction and the science fiction sections or mystery or something like that. So it's just kind of born out of like this frustration of not being able to find very much horror in a bookstore, or going in and seeing like, the giant wall of just Stephen King books. And that's why
Yeah.
I think and our space is very small right now. Right now it's just about 400 square feet. So having just one genre works really well for us. We hope that we can expand into the back building, like push Curry Sound to like work from home sort of stuff. Get my
Time
dad
to,
to work from home.
time to kick him out.
Yeah. Because he basically just he doesn't see any customers or clients. He basically just kind of does like office type work. And we're
Yeah.
like, you could do that from home if you really wanted to. So that's the goal. We don't really have like a timeline for that, but when we do that, then we'll have to figure out how to fill all of that extra space, because like I said, we are very small, but we fill it really well, I think. And I've always been a reader and I've always been writing, so I think every writer and reader deep down in them wishes they could own a bookstore, and I was lucky to have the circumstances that could lead to that happening.
Yeah, that sounds great. And I agree with what you said with the frustration of going into a bookshop and finally finding the Hurl section only to see 9 out of 10 shelves just Stephen King and also some Dean Koontz.
Right. And we have quarantined both of those authors to their own sections.
Oh, I thought you meant the actual humans.
Yes, we captured them and they are in the basement. Actually, they could be, because in the basement of the building, when we were cleaning out the space, a lot of it involved just like either moving what was in that front space where the store is now to like the back, and then stuff, and then it sort of was like a displacement, like we had to move all the stuff that was in the front, either throw it out or move it to that back area where Curry Sound is now. But
Mhm.
then you have some place for that stuff to go, so then we had to relocate stuff that was in the back to the basement. And while we were doing that in the basement, we found that there's this like really old safe in the basement,
Okay.
and and it's like encased in concrete, like it's part of the foundation. There's no like handle or doors, and it's just like there's
What?
like where the knob should be is kind of rusty. And if you like, I took a picture of it, and in the picture it kind of looks like there's like a face coming out of the black door. So
Have
maybe
you
they're in there.
have you made any attempt to like break through it somehow? I don't know how you would do that.
Yeah, I would love to, but I don't know any way that it would be possible. I guess we could get like a locksmith or somebody in
Oh,
there, but
yeah. That sounds
there's just like
smelt.
there's no like the
Yeah.
knob is just completely gone.
Well, I feel like in movies they always have like a giant drill or something and
Yeah.
just go through the wall. I don't know. Drop it from a high distance, maybe.
Yeah.
Um,
It would be fun to see what's in there, but maybe we would release something that should have stayed encased in there.
yeah, this is the plot of the Evil Dead, kind of. So,
Yeah.
have you given any thought to, and maybe it's just too fragile to do, but like to expand the retail section to the basement as well?
No, not to the basement because the basement is right now it's like a workshop sort of, but it is definitely one of those like really it would be a good basement for like a haunted house, so I guess it would sort of go with the theme, but
Yeah.
it's like it's like the building is really old. I think that we looked and it was like built in like 1900, so it's over 100 years old. And yeah, and so just with that, it's like the basement is just like damp and wet.
Yeah, that you don't want to have customers go somewhere. They could
And
potentially sue you.
yeah, probably not the best environment for books either.
Oh yeah, that's true. I sometimes get nostalgic for basements because I grew up in Indiana. Well, basements full of plenty, but now I live in Texas, and there's no such
Mm,
thing as basements now. They're just
yeah,
gone. I guess it has something to do with the soil, maybe. I don't know, but
might
no
be
one.
tornadoes. Like you don't have really tornadoes in Texas, right? So you don't need a basement.
I don't know. I'm no basement expert. Just sometimes I think about them and I think, yeah, I like those.
Yeah.
I went to a bookshop once. I think it's in LA. Now, I don't know. I've been to a bookshop in the United States. And they had a basement that was like the genre section, and I thought that was pretty cool.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know which one it was though. If anyone's listening who knows what I'm talking about, don't tell me. It's just keep it to yourself. Let the mystery live. So I first became like aware of this bookstore and of you when you posted the photo of the shop after you guys had just finished painting it to look like dripping blood. I would love for you to
Yeah.
talk about the design idea into that, and also how like it kind of, at least from my perspective, became this type of viral sensation when you posted it.
Yeah, so I knew that I wanted to paint it, and we sort of like both agreed that it needed to be painted in some way because prior to the bookstore, prior to Butcher Cabin Books, it was Curry Sound for a really long time, like probably I think since the 70s it was Curry Sound. And it was on this, like I said, this really cool street with all these cool shops, and there's a restaurant next door. And it was kind of invisible. It was just like this nondescript white brick building that, no customers ever came in or out of. Um, and so it was almost kind of like invisible. So I knew that we needed to paint it, even just to like signify to people driving by, like, oh, something new is going in that space. Um, and we toyed around with some ideas. We had by that point we had the name Butcher Cabin Books, so we thought like, some ideas we threw around were like, what if we paint it to look like a cabin outside, like, like logs or something, and kind of dismissed that idea because I was like, I don't really want to try to paint wood grain. That seemed pretty tedious. We threw out some colors, and I'm not exactly sure like what the inspiration was for the drips. Maybe we were like talking about goosebumps or something, but eventually I had the idea to do like those big exaggerated drips. And originally, we weren't really thinking of it as blood. We just sort of picked the red color because Curry Sounds colors are that bright red and white. And so just sort of like an homage to that business, we picked the red, and then, it did fit as a horror theme with the blood. And yeah, we just kind of drew the design in chalk and then just started painting it. And I posted it on my Twitter just because I thought I had some people who followed me who were interested in horror or were horror writers. And so I just sort of posted it on my Twitter, just thinking like, oh, some people on there know that I'm doing this and they probably would just like find it interesting. And, as I don't know how to make things go viral, it just sort of spiraled out of control, and I don't know that I did anything really to encourage that or to really make that happen. I think it was just a very lucky accident.
Well,
I think
I think people are just really excited about the idea of like a indie spooky bookshop, and the way you guys painted that was just so cool and unique, and I think it stood out, and that really helped it like become the spotlight for fans of the genre.
yeah. Well, I'm glad it can be that.
How did you come up with the name of the bookshop?
So we get like I said with the color scheme, we're kind of struggling with the name. We had like this really long list. I'll admit I'm pretty bad at naming things, but when we were like looking up the history of the building, originally it was first a butcher shop, and cabins are a horror trope, but also like the interior. I don't know if there's any like pictures of the interior online. I guess I posted a video at the end of that first weekend of like walking around the store, but you'll see that if you come in, you'll notice immediately that there's like wood paneling. Um, and that's original to the space that was there when we took over. And so we sort of like wanted to lean in with that cabin theme because the wood paneling does give it sort of like a cabin feel. It's like very small, like cabins tend to be. So we just sort of threw those things together of Butcher Cabin books. And it worked out. We got that cabin vibe. We didn't have to put up drywall and paint. It saved us some time.
It's a great name. I love it. What will some of the other names you had considered?
Oh, I'd have to pull up the list. Let me see if I can remember any of them.
Okay, it's fine if you can't.
I know we were trying to play off of like, so there used to be a used like sort of hole in the wall bookstore in town when I was in high school called Twice Told Tales. And I feel like we were trying to like sort of play off of that at one point, like Twice Murdered Tales or, something silly like that. I think we like talked about doing something with like Final Girls, since it's like a women-owned business and that's like a trope in horror, but I think I'm very happy with the name that we ended up with.
Yeah. So once you decided, yes, we're going to open this bookshop, what type of research did you put into like how to do that? Because for obvious reasons, I am asking you, and I don't even know if I've talked. I haven't talked about this on the podcast. Maybe I discussed it in the intro. We recently leased a building to also open a bookshop, and I am quickly realizing I know nothing about how to open a bookshop. So I wonder if you also had that moment and how you reacted to it.
Yeah, I mean, we definitely don't have a background in, book selling or anything like that. It wasn't something we're like, oh, I worked in bookstores when I was in high school or growing up or in college or anything. Like I've never worked in a bookstore, and neither has my mother. And I don't really personally know anybody who has either. We did reach out to and visit Bucket of Blood Books in Chicago, and they were very nice and talked to us. We do some things a little differently than them, like we do online sales on our website, and I think they're in store only. Their store is much larger than ours and has more than just horror. And they have like, science fiction section, a fantasy section, and they have like a whole bunch of records and movies.
Yeah,
Their store
I,
is really cool, but
I love
we
that
are,
place.
yeah, we're like very, very niche. We have like a general horror section, and then we have like local Kentucky authors. We have some paperbacks from hell, like we have the actual old paperbacks that we try to find and collect. And then we have different sections for like BIPOC authors and LGBTQ authors and like short stories and stuff. So we have all of that. We have kids books and middle grade and YA, and we also have some spooky nonfiction. And then we have like a thriller section that nobody really touches. And then we have some merch. But so our store is very much smaller. And honestly, I think you'll be fine, Max, because if you're already publishing books, you already know how to market things. Honestly, I feel like and you already have an audience of people who know who you are. So
I have really specific concerns, such as
okay.
like, okay, I should have made a list ahead of time, but I have a list in my head. Like, for instance, how do you handle uh, prices? Do you, because not every book has a price listed on the book. Are you like getting little stickers and putting them on the book? People
We
hate
do.
that
We have little
sometimes.
removable. We use Avery brand. I don't know if this is like super interesting for the audience, but we use
I have no interest in interesting the audience. This is for me.
we use you can see it, and sometimes when people post books that they ordered from us, we have little removable like square stickers on every book that tell the price.
Oh wait, I'm holding a book I recently bought from you, and I'm not seeing it.
I might have taken sometimes I take them off if we mail it.
God damn it! This would have been useful.
It's Avery removable. Yeah, it's an Avery brand removable labels, and you can get them in various sizes. I'll
Okay,
send you like a
yeah,
link or something.
thank you.
You can get them at Staples and
Now,
any store like that.
now, we do a lot of like pop-up events. So we have
Hmm.
those little boxes, you plug into the iPad so you can take a credit card payments.
Yeah.
Did you like invest in an actual like scanning thing, a scanner? Do you have one of
No,
those?
we
Oh,
use Square.
yeah, that's what I have.
Square for retail. It's probably the same exact thing that you already have.
It
We have
is.
Square for retail, and then we have the card reader that's like you can insert a chip or you can tap to charge. We have that on like a charging dock thing, and we just use the camera on the iPad to scan things.
Isn't there some temptation though to get one of those old-fashioned Ockville giant scanning devices? I don't know.
No,
They seem
not
so cool to me.
not to me, but we did at first we thought we were gonna have to buy like a scanning gun. And
Yeah.
it was like really annoying. We were trying to look into all of that, and then we're like, oh, we can just use the camera on the iPad, and we have like a cheap stand for the iPad. We
Okay.
just do that.
Now, shelving wise, did you invest in just all new bookshelves, or did you do what I'm thinking of doing and going to various flea markets around my town and just scavenging what I can find?
We tried to do that. We tried to scavenge, but we didn't really find very much. I don't know if Louisville is just like devoid of used bookshelves, but I think that was one of the spots where we actually ended up wasting a little bit of money. It wasn't too much money. It was like $75, but we bought these shelves off of somebody like on Facebook Marketplace or somewhere like that. And we got them into the space and they were just like too big. They were really deep. We
Yeah.
didn't notice until we had already gotten them that they were like there was like a bunch of water damage at the bottom. So and they're really heavy. So we were just like, we're just gonna get rid of these. We don't want them falling on anybody. And they were just like really, like I said, too deep for a bookstore because books are not that long usually.
Yeah.
We do have a few pieces that are either thrifted or like we have this like funky shelf sort of on the back wall that I repainted and added some legs to. The things in the center we actually bought from someone who had closed their business and was like moving. I think they just closed the Louisville location, and we're selling the fixtures. And so we do have like we have like this really cool shelf I found at a flea market that was like it's really pointy, and we put like our special edition or special expensive copies of books on that one.
Yeah.
But really we just went to Target and bought their like cheap five shelf bookshelves, and then we do have all of them like mounted to the wall, so with like L
Okay.
brackets, so they're not going to fall over.
That makes sense. And yeah, now I'm nervous about buying one of these cheap ones at a flea market and then it just killing some child.
Yeah, I
That
mean,
would be bad.
I would say maybe like don't try to buy them on Facebook Marketplace because you don't really have time to like really examine them, or at least for me, it's awkward to do that like while you're like meeting the person. But if
Yeah.
you're in a flea market, you should be able to like really inspect them, and I would like sort of jiggle them, make sure they're sturdy, look at the bottom to make sure there's no like water damage or anything weird like that. I probably wouldn't go any deeper than like, honestly, like 12 inches is probably too deep. Maybe like, I don't know, you can measure a book and see
Yeah.
how deep, but the ones from Target work pretty well
Have you
for us.
have you done those? I think they'll call it shelf talkies where you have like a little sticker with like a description. Do you do those as well? Do
Um,
you know what I'm talking
not,
about?
I don't think so. I mean, we have our shelves like kind of labeled, just like with whatever sections, like thriller, nonfiction, but that's
Yeah.
about it.
Do you do alphabetical or do you do some type of crazy categorization like
We do like alphabetical by author within categories. Now we might have what some people might consider like kind of weird sections. So we have our general horror sections, and that's where like you'll find, like, I would say most things or most books that we stock. That's our largest section. But then we have like a BIPOC section where we have like indigenous authors and Black authors, and just to sort of like highlight them. And we also have a translated section for horror books that have been translated. We have an LGBTQ section. We have a graphic novel section, stories. We do have a very small classics and sci-fi section. But really, we just chose to do some of those smaller sections just to like be able to highlight those authors or those works that I think sometimes get overlooked for various reasons, and just sort of like be able to, like I said, highlight them and have people be able to browse them a little bit more easily.
yeah, that sounds great. How much pre-planning did you put into like that type of layout before even like having the space and the books available? Like did you like spend time just like sketching out like okay, I know I want this section. I have to have this section and so forth.
Not really. I think, like I said, I think we probably would have done more of that type of planning if our space wasn't so small, but it's
Oh
really
yeah.
just like a 400 square feet square.
Yeah.
So there's not really much we can do besides put shelves along the walls, and then we have that thing in the center, which we were lucky to find because honestly, I knew that like that was gonna be the best layout, and like almost the only layout was to have like something in the middle and then shelves like lining the walls. And when I found those two things, former business was selling, we got lucky because they work really well in the space. They give us, display. They give us a space for displaying books, but they also give us storage on the
Right.
side.
A couple of days ago we were talking, you mentioned that you had, and also in this recording, how you were located on a pretty interesting street and you do have a lot of foot
Mhm.
traffic. And
Yeah.
something I know I like when I sell books at like a pop-up event is coming across somebody who is into like this strange shit, but
Hmm.
they've never like seen it like out in the wild like this,
Hmm.
and then they look at these books like, what, how do these even exist, like
Hmm.
Do you get that a lot? Like, how is that for you?
Yeah, we do. We get a lot of people who stop in and they'll say like, "Oh, this is so awesome." And they're very excited to like be able to explore new books or books that they're not going to find at Barnes and Noble or somewhere like that. And so I've been very pleasantly surprised by how excited our community is, and we've had lots of people who have actually even we've only been open for like 3 months, and we've already had people who have come in and said like, I traveled to Louisville specifically to visit your bookstore,
Wow.
which is wild. We've had people who say that they are, in town on a business trip and they're just really excited that they were able to stop in. And, people ask for recommendations, and it's really nice to be able to point them to a book that they've never heard of, as opposed to like, being recommended the same books over and over and over again.
That's crazy. Did they tell you how far away they traveled? Like, was it within Kentucky or what?
Sometimes it's within Kentucky. When Laurel Hightower she did a live podcast recording with us. We had a couple people who said they drove from Baltimore, I think,
Wow.
to see her and do that podcast.
Oh,
Um,
forgive me for not knowing. Do you have a podcast you do as well?
no, my friend in town does a podcast called Graveyard Coffee Talk, where they sort of talk about like folklore around the world. So usually they'll pick a topic and sort of discuss like how it is how that topic sort of presents in the United States as well as abroad. And so they did talk about like writing and stuff, but they talked to her about her book Below, which you guys published, and sort of like Mothman sort of really fit into their vibes.
That's awesome. Have you had a chance to do many other events as well?
We so like I think April 2022, or sometime earlier before we opened, we tried to do like an event at like a sort of outdoor art market. At that point we only had used books, and I think we ended up just like making the booth fee back. Like we didn't really make any money at that event. And we are going to be at an event in next month in February, on February 18th. Yeah, February 18th will be at the Scarlet Lane Brewery in Indiana. I think it's kind of near Indianapolis, for their like Scarelastic book festival or book fair. So we'll be there with like t-shirts and tote bags and books from the authors that are there for signing. And we've been invited to do some events, some like pop-up things, but I think it makes a little bit more sense for you to do those sorts of things as like a publisher than it does for us as just a sort of general horror bookstore to do those events, because those things, like it makes sense to do the Scarlet Lane because there's like specific authors who are going to be there, and we're basically like the bookstore for that event. So like Andy Davidson and Cynthia Paleo are going to be there, and we'll have their books, and people will buy the book from us and then go get it signed.
Right.
So that sort of event makes sense. And if there was like a convention in town, it would make sense, like a horror convention or a horror writing convention, it would make sense for us to be at that sort of thing. But we haven't really done much pop-ups outside of that, because I wouldn't really know like what books to take. And I also sort of feel like when people go to those sort of events, they're looking for like art or jewelry and not necessarily like books.
Right. When we
Maybe
did
I'm wrong, but
the Ghoulish Book Fest last year, I had wanted to get this one guest of Arnold to come, and he said he would only do it if we could get a bookshop to come have a table so they could buy and stock its book, because he didn't want to be in charge of having his book at the table. And I couldn't for the life of me get any bookshop to respond to me about this, so he never came.
very strange.
I think so too. I emailed probably 3 different bookshops in Central Texas and nothing.
Yeah, that's very odd. But now you can do it yourself.
Yes, I can. As soon as I figure out how. I haven't looked into it yet, so I'm sure
Yeah.
I can
I mean,
figure this out.
I'll say that like that was probably the most difficult part, was like setting up accounts with all of the booksellers, but at the same time it wasn't very hard.
Okay, good to know. You mentioned you did an event back in April selling only
Hmm.
used books. Do you sell used books at the shop as well?
Yes, we sell a mixture of used and new books.
Yeah.
I'll say that like most people are buying the new books. I think originally we had wanted to sort of be like only used books because we were thinking like the space is really small, but we decided to do a mix because like I said, I'm a big horror reader, and I knew that there was a lot of interesting horror books coming out like currently, and I was like, there's not going to be a really good used market to source those things, and I definitely wanted to sell them.
Right.
So yeah, we do a mixture.
Do you have like is this, I assume it's separated? Like, how do you have the used books displayed?
They're all mixed together, just
Oh,
in their like the various sections of the store. So like if we have like a used copy of a Clive Barker book, we'll throw that into the LGBTQ section.
okay, cool. Do you what would you say is like the top three best-selling books at the store? Like what can't you keep on the shelf?
I'm not sure if it was because he did an event with us in October, but we've sold a lot of copies of Ghost Eaters by Clay McLeod Chapman. We have sold a ton of copies of Man Fuck This House. Like that one, like legitimately is hard to keep in stock. And we've also sold a lot of copies of Below by Laurel Hightower. Um, we sell a lot of copies of Grady Hendrix, and especially his like Paperbacks from Hell nonfiction book. I would say those are probably the top ones right now,
That's awesome.
or so far.
So I know you've had Little Hightail, and you mentioned also Clay. Do you have any
Mhm.
other in shop events scheduled for the future people should know about?
Yeah. On February 17th, we have Brian Assman, so author of Man Fuck This House, will be in the store. Let me pull up the calendar. So he'll be there on the 17th. We have Cynthia Paleo is gonna come sometime in early April. Brian Keene will be there April 14th for an event. Um, in May, we have Hamat Singh, and I'm probably mispronouncing that, so I apologize. He just released a poetry book that's on the preliminary Stoker ballot. So he'll be here. And I think we have like a couple of other events that are sort of like tentatively way farther in the future. But yeah, we're always looking to have authors come in and do some cool stuff. Like we just had last Saturday, we had J.R. Marquardt, like I'm also mispronouncing his name, who did the Nightmare Man.
Okay, that sounds fun.
J.H. Marquardt. He's actually local, and he did a reading from his book.
Nice. What type of what type of turnout are you seeing at these events? Are they different depending on the guest, or because of the location, are you seeing a lot of the same people coming out every time?
Yeah, we do have some regulars. I think there's somebody who comes in almost every Saturday. He like will buy one book, and then over the week he'll read it, and he'll come in and get a new one. Um, for the events, they've been I'll say a little hit or miss, and I think it is dependent upon the author as well as maybe the weather. But like Clay's event was packed, Laurel's event was packed. We've had a couple of events where, just a few people showed up. We had an event where we had a poetry reading where we had so many people show up that we actually had to put a sign on the door saying that like nobody else could come in because we were just too full,
I
which was
am
fun.
I am blown away that you had so many people come for a poetry reading. That's crazy.
Yeah. Yeah, so I haven't talked to that person about doing it again, but I was like, I would love to do this again, but I think next time we'll have to like do some sort of ticketing system.
I hope they all bought a book.
They did not,
Oh
but
shit.
it's okay because now they know that we're there and they'll
Yeah.
hopefully come back.
I've seen some bookshops. I don't know how I feel about this. Really, you can attend the reading or the signing or whatever's going on as long as you buy a copy of the book to get in. What do you think about that?
Um, I mean, I don't think it really makes sense for our store because we're so tiny, but I
Yeah.
can see I can see some events doing that. Like if it's I don't think I would be opposed to that being like your ticket, especially if like it's gonna be signed by the
Yeah.
author. Sort of like your I don't think personally it would be I would feel weird about doing something if it was like you pay a ticket and then you also have to pay for the book, but I could see like if it was a bigger event, like you buy the book as your ticket and then you get a
Right,
signed
yeah.
book.
That's usually what I've seen is the buying the book is the ticket to get in.
Yeah, I mean, I think, but I feel like when I have seen that before, it's like you are like sort of ordering it online. It's not like you show up and they're like, you must buy this book or something.
That's a good point. Yeah, I haven't had that happen. They just like had some giant guy just with a baseball bat blocking me from coming in. Although that would be cool. I should invest in a bookstore bouncer. I don't
Yeah,
know what
but
that
I
would
don't think you would
cost.
need a baseball bat. You could just use a really big book.
That is true. Like the Deluge by Stephen Milkley. I don't know if you've
Or
seen
like
that book. It's
the
giant.
It by Stephen King.
Yeah, it depends though. I've only seen paperbacks. I mean,
I have a
I've seen a hardcover, but not in a long time. I don't think they still print a hardcover of that book.
I have a hardcover of it, but I think it was like a ex library book.
Yeah, you
But
steal a lot of
that's one
books from the
thing
library.
we have gone to some library sales to source books, and we one of the mistakes that we made early on was that we were just sort of like grabbing anything that we saw that we thought was like spooky or horror, but we were grabbing ex-library books, and we quickly learned that they're really not good for reselling because so when we are sourcing used books, like I said, we go to thrift stores and we go to library sales. And I try to be conscientious that like I am a reseller in that situation. And I know some people are feel unsavory towards resellers, and I get it. But the way I think about it is I do try to be conscientious and like not grab every single thing. If there's like two copies of something, I'll only take one, stuff like that.
Yeah,
But also I think of it as like we are providing a service of curation. So instead of having to like go to Goodwill and dig through all of the dusty, gross copies of everything, you can come into our store and you can get a cleaned up used copy because we like I said, we take the time to remove all the stickers that might be on it. We make sure all the pages are there. We clean up the book. If there's like sticker residue or something weird on it, we'll do that. But with library books, we quickly learned that they're not very good for reselling because oftentimes they'll have like a stamp on the actual pages of the library name. The stickers that they use are really hard to get off. You often have to end up like tearing the inside of it where they've like taped the dust jacket. So we ended up with a lot of ex-library books that we couldn't really sell. And so, excuse me, either I kept some of them or we actually have it was bigger when we first opened, but now we have like a smaller shelf of just free with purchase books where we've just put those books.
yeah.
And if we ended up with any advanced reader copies of things, we'll also put those on that shelf.
Oh,
Just
that's a
like,
good idea. I have so many of those. I have no idea what to do with them.
yeah, well, another thing that we haven't amassed enough to do this really, it was just really like when we were going to those library sales or whatever, sometimes we would accidentally grab like an advanced reader copy and get it back and be like, oh, I don't really want to resell this. Um, But one bookstore, the other local bookstore in town, Carmichael's, what they'll do is they'll sort of collect them, and then on an event like Independent Bookstore Day, or if they have like a special event, they'll wrap them, and then you get one, like a mystery one, free with purchase.
That is a great idea. I am absolutely going to do that. I have like boxes of them around my house because I don't want to throw them away. And I've tried to commit a crime. I've tried to break the law by just selling them like at half price books, but they always go, "You can't do this. Where did you get this from? Let me see that ID again." And I'm like, "Okay, I'm leaving. Bye." So I just have all these advanced reading copies. So that's a good idea.
Yeah, we're starting to get some. We get them mailed to us from like Night Fire Tour actually like mails us physical copies. But we don't get a whole lot of ARCs so far otherwise. We've been invited to do like digital ARCs, and that's cool too.
Yeah.
Which I think makes sense, but
right. Can you think of anything else mistake-wise that you wish you had known ahead of time that you would want to tell perhaps somebody who's about to open a bookshop? Like me? I'm talking about me.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think the only the first thing that comes to mind isn't necessarily a mistake. It was more like something that we couldn't have really anticipated, to be honest. So like when we ordered our first round of stock, we only ordered about 2 or 3 copies of each title. So we didn't really have a back stock. And then I'm sure that a lot of people saw the videos of that opening day where like the line was literally down the street and around the block, and it was like that for a few hours. So by the end of that first weekend, our shelves were pretty empty. And it was fun to be able to tweet out like this sold out and this sold out. Which, you know, it happened really fast, but like I said, we didn't really have a back stock. So I think it's not, like I said, it's not a mistake, but that's still a learning curve that we're trying to figure out, is like we don't want to over order copies,
right?
But we don't want to not have some sort of back stock. And it feels like sometimes there's just like these weird waves, and I don't know of like waves of interest, and I don't know if it has to do with like book talk or like social media, or like sometimes books will be like really hot at the moment. But for example, like Manhunt, that book from Nightfire Tour, and I always get the author's name wrong, so I'm not gonna try to pronounce her name or say her name, because I don't know why. I just like, it's a block in my weird head. But
corrections novel. Yeah.
So it seemed like for like a few weeks, there would just be people coming in and they would just be like, "Do you have Manhunt? Do you have Manhunt?" And, so we would have to be constantly reordering it. And then like, after those few weeks, it seems like nobody has really purchased it. And so, it seems like there must be some, like I said, I don't know if it's like social media or what, or maybe there was like a book club or something, but we do seem to go through these waves where like one book will be like really in demand, and it's not usually like a brand new book. But
That's interesting. That brings a question to mind that I didn't even know I had. But yeah, like what do you often see as the case? Someone walking in with a book in mind they want, in the middle of like it's a bookshop. Wow, I could buy a book. Let's browse.
Yeah, I definitely think we get more browsers than people like asking for a specific book, but we do get people coming in asking for a specific book.
What's the strangest book anyone's ever asked if you had in stock?
I mean, we're a horror bookstore, so it's hard to say that anything's going to be like really that strange.
Yeah,
of
good
a
point.
Request.
do you sometimes get people just like not understanding that you only stock this genre?
Yeah, we've had like a couple of people come in, and so like we're still, I guess this is like one mistake. We're still trying to figure out how to do like some good signage, because I don't really want to just paint over our like splatter paint job. And we have bought like a banner, but we are still trying to find time and the how we're supposed to do it. We want to attach it to the roof. It has grommets, and it's like an outdoor banner, but we just like aren't sure how to attach it to the roof, like technically. So I think like early on we didn't really we had like the name of the store like on the door with our hours, but we would like overhear people being like, "What is this?" Or walking in being like, "I didn't know what this was." And I think on one of the first events, I think early on too, like Google was like leading people to a weird spot of the building, or like having them, there's like an alley behind us. And then like the restaurant next door to us has a parking lot. And I think Google was like taking people through the alley and like up the wrong way through the restaurant's parking lot. So I think early on I overheard some people complaining like, "There's not any signage. How was I supposed to find it?" and all this stuff.
It's
So
the
that is
bleeding
one
building.
thing. Yeah, so we had a coming soon banner that we had, so we taped over coming soon, and we have that up right now. But we're still trying to figure out the best way to do that, like more permanent signage. We've had people walk in asking like, "Oh, I thought this was a sound company. Where's all the speakers?" Because like the Curry Sound sign is still up.
Yeah. So do you have to walk through the bookshop to get to it?
Yeah, I mean, like I said, Curry Sound doesn't have any clients.
Right.
So, but like if somebody were to go there, yeah, they would have to walk through the bookstore to get to Curry Sound. But it's mostly just like data entry and stuff for my dad. What other questions do you have? I feel like this has turned into you're asking how to run a bookstore.
I mean, that was pretty much the plan. We're basically running out of time at this point, but I didn't want to end without you talking about the novel you have coming out. What can you tell us about that?
I just finished the line edits, so I'm very excited about that. It feels like, I think with any traditional publishing, it's always very slow, and it feels like this is my first book, so it feels, I think, almost excruciatingly slow just because of that. But it is going to be published by Quirk Books, who publish Grady's early stuff and Clay McLeod Chapman's stuff. So I'm very happy with the publisher. And the book is about 4 campers who go into the Kentucky wilderness. They think 2 of them are grad students and 2 of them are rock climbers, and they think that they're going to sort of develop this new rock climbing spot. Like they think that they found this really cool rock climbing area, and they're going to sort of develop it and do some research. And but what they don't know is that it's actually a cursed site that has lured them there to trap them and eat them.
Nice. What is it called?
It's called This Wretched Valley.
I knew it had Valley in it, but I was blanking on the rest.
The original title was That Wretched Valley, and they switched it to This Wretched Valley.
I like both. This, that.
Yeah, I was like, sure.
How did you get hooked up with that press?
Well, I had a non-replicable path to that publishing or that publisher, because I wrote the book. I've been working on this same book for what feels like forever. I think I started writing it in like late 2019 or sometime in 2020. I know I at least had the idea in 2019. So it feels like I've been working on it forever, but I wrote it, I revised it, I was querying some agents, and I was getting good responses from them. I was getting a good request rate. So like a lot of agents were requesting more material, which is a good sign, but ultimately they all passed on it. And then I did a program called Pitch Wars, which is I ended up being in the last class without knowing it, but I was very graciously selected by Cynthia Paleo to be mentored. And so she helped me revise and edit that book. And then after that, I was able to sign with an agent, and he sold it really quickly to Quirk within like a month.
Wow.
So yeah.
That's awesome. Sina is a friend, and that's great that she was involved as well. And
She's been really awesome.
That comes out in 2024, you said, next year?
Yeah, January 2024, so like another year. But should have stuff like all the exciting stuff leading up to it soon, like a cover reveal and like getting blurbs begging people to read it before it's published.
That
So I
sounds
can say,
awesome.
look, this person said it's great. You should buy it.
I would happily read a copy if you sent it to me. It sounds
Yeah,
amazing. Have you
I'll
done
for
much
sure do
rock
that.
climbing?
Yes, I have been rock climbing for probably a little less than 10 years now. But
That's
I'm
insane.
out of shape now because I'm a gym climber mostly, and I haven't been going to gym since COVID started.
Yeah. The idea of climbing a rock just sounds nuts to me. I'm sorry. Just
No, I mean it is.
mostly because I'm a really clumsy person, so it's like,
Mhm.
no way, not happening.
I feel like I would say you should give it a try because there's a lot of especially in a gym, if you can go or feel comfortable, there's a lot of safety measures there. And I
Yeah.
actually feel like climbing has helped me be a graceful, clumsy person. So like I'm still clumsy, but if I'm like walking down the street and I trip, I'm able to like catch myself. I don't actually fall anymore.
Well, that's good to know. Okay. Because that's my issue. It's my trip. I just keep falling. Okay, well, I think that's about time. Oh, wait, no. I have one last question.
Okay.
Uh, well, I'll ask you one thing, then it'll lead into a second question. What is the
Okay.
website name of your bookshop?
It's horrorbookstore.com.
Yes. So my second question is, how the hell was that not taken?
I don't know. I mean, we did purchase that pretty early on into the process, I think, because I don't know, I think I was just like, I bet this is taken. I wonder what it is. And I, typed it in and it didn't come up with anything. And I was like, oh, is that available? So then I like, went to like the domain finder and it was available and I bought it immediately and also like set up, all Twitter and TikTok with that name. I I apologize to the person who has Horror Bookstore on Twitter, who has had that for a long time, but they didn't grab the other things. They were available. So
I am so surprised that it
we
was available,
are
that you have
too.
that. It's a great name. You would think something like that would have been bought like in 1999 or something.
Right. And just like somebody sitting on it.
So beyond, you just said how people can find the bookshop. How can the folks find you online as well?
I am on Twitter at it's at underscore Jenny Kiefer. And I also have a TikTok that I think is JL Kiefer, but I don't really post anything to be honest on my TikTok. I don't I'm a millennial and don't know how to use it. Um
Yeah.
I'm also on Instagram at Jenny Crafts Things, but that's sort of like right now it hasn't really become like an author and I also don't post very much there. Mostly I post for the bookstore and my personal social media is pretty much updates only just because my brain is an anxiety monster and I can't scroll Twitter or anything without it like just freaking out.
I understand. Well, thank you for coming on and doing this. I hope one day I can come visit Louisville.
Yeah,
You know?
and make sure you say that like so many times while you're giving your reading.
I could go into like gas stations and go, "Excuse me, how close am I to Louisville?" And then I don't know, I get shot, I guess. I don't know.
No, they probably just roll their eyes or not care.
This fucking rube, this
Out of
noob.
towner.
Get out of here. Okay. Well, again, thank you. This was fun. This should go live tomorrow. Yeah, it's definitely
Oh,
going live tomorrow. That's why we did this tonight.
well, awesome.
All right.
I'll
I'll
put
let
it on
you.
my update only social media.
Thank you. And maybe you could just just play it on the speaker at the bookshop, to
Yeah,
just from milning to closing, so people know.
over and over again. I
Be
have to listen
terrible.
to my own voice.
And that was Jenny Kiefer talking about Butchel Cabin Books and what it's like to operate a spooky bookshop go visit Butchell Cabin Books in Louisville, Kentucky, and buy some spooky books from them. Go on over to JennyKiefer.com and find out what's going on with This Wretched Valley and anything else she might be up to. And go to Kickstarter.com, type in Ghoulish, back us on Kickstarter. Go to GHOULISHBooks.com, buy some of those spooky books for sale, and live spooky. Die spooky. Yeah, do that.
Live spooky, die spooky.
Rest in peace, Max.